Hello, this is XG21, and welcome to 1v1 Commander Games. This is in preparation for the upcoming 1v1 Commander Leagues on Magic Online. My commander is Doran the Siege Tower. He costs 1 black, green, and 1 white, and he's a 0/5, makes all creatures deal damage with their toughness as opposed to their power. My opponent has commander is Yidris Maelstrom Wielder, and that is the one that does ridiculous cascade effects. This opening hand for me is not super impressive, but it's definitely a keepable hand. I have all 3 colors of mana, as well as the 3 lands to play it. I'll be able to play a 2-drop in either the Tide Hallow Scholar or the Gifted Aetherborn. So I'm perfectly fine keeping this hand, even if it's not the best I could have. My opponent did mulligan, and they actually end up going down to 5, but they keep at that point. So they'd lead off with Expedition Map and a mountain. And I get the Swords of Plowshare, so I play the Concealed Courtyard, not only because it needs to get out there sooner, but so I have the white available to kill someone if they do play it. My opponent then plays one of the Karus from the original Ravnica, so they have to bounce back that mountain. And here, with my opponent tapped down, I believe the Scholar is the better choice, as I can essentially just see what's in their hand, get an idea of what's coming up. Both of these cards are quite good for my opponent. They have Mystical Tutor, lets them search for an answer. I'm actually more worried about the Windfall of the situation. The Windfall essentially lets them undo their mulligan, and they can play it in such a way that they draw 3 cards and I lose this. I'm also pretty happy with this hand, so I'd much rather take the Windfall at this point. So here, my opponent plays a land and then passes. And then I, of course, play Doran on turn 3. 1 turn slower than I would like, obviously, but getting him down on turn 3 is still a perfectly fine solution. If you note, my opponent did not use their Mystical Tutor that we know they have, because they revealed it, and they did not crack their Expedition Map. I'm not really sure why. I also always like to keep these open when I'm playing. It gives me an idea, it makes me remember what's in their hand, as well as be able to notice, for instance, this is the same land, so they did play that land. So it can actually matter if you play with the same lands or not, as some opponents do keep track of that. So here my opponent just plays their commander, which I'm fine with because I have the Swords of Plowshares to answer it. And so on my turn, I just immediately kill it, because you can't let that one hit. If it hits, it's very likely to be very bad, and I wouldn't really have the capability of blocking it unless I didn't want to attack, and that's not what this deck wants to do. And then after that, I just go ahead and add Anna Finza. She's a relatively new addition to the deck, and so it's interesting to see how she's working. Definitely very powerful and a very good fit for the deck. And so at this point, now my opponent decides to crack the Expedition Map, and more than likely the Mystical Tutor. I'm actually most worried about a Wrath at this point, but their mana situation isn't the best for that. And because I'm worried about a Wrath, I go ahead and pick up Elsbeth, as that's a strong choice. Lets me increase the clock and keep something on the board in case of a Wrath. Of course, I also need my opponent then decide they want something other than a Wrath. And what they get is Cyclonic Rift, which is a card that is less than ideal for me. Because with the Temple of the False God, they got off their Expedition Map, they can't play it this next turn. And so essentially my opponent just plays their land and passes, as there's nothing for them to do. They're going to want to play it after I attack to restrict my mana. And using Elsbeth's ability is completely worthless at this point. I know, completely sure they have to use a Cyclonic Rift here, so it doesn't really matter what I do with any of my creatures. And so my opponent does use it, gets back the Windfall, which is now problematic because I have my commander in my hand, because I in Magic Online was being feisty about it. And so at this point, they only have 2 Force and a Windfall, so I get the Windfall back. Essentially, I had 2 options. I could either play the Scholar and get the Windfall again, or play Doran, because I would lose him otherwise. At that point, though, they would still be able to Windfall and draw 5 cards, so it would be very bad for me. So it's pretty much a have to use the Scholar. Also leaves me 2 mana to drop the Skin Shifter as well. My opponent just played Explore, which lets them play those 2 lands that they had in their hand. And they still have enough mana left over to recast their commander. For me, it's fine, though, as I get to use Eternal Witness to get back my Swords of Plowshares. And I would even have enough mana left over to activate the Skin Shifter and attack for 6. However, with that ability on the stack, my opponent concedes. Thank you for watching me, and I hope you enjoy the next game. Alright, here we are at the next game. I won the die roll, and my opponent is playing some of the partner commanders from the recent set. So we have Tymna the Weaver. She has lifelink, and at the beginning of the owner's post-combat main phase, they can pay X life, and where X is the number of opponents that were dealt damage, and draw X cards. So a much better card in multiplayer than it is in single player, but it is still a draw engine, and it's relatively cheap at 3 mana. And they also have Thrasios Triton Hero, which lets them scry through their deck and play some lands and draw cards. So this hand is somewhat of a risky keep. I'm unconvinced I'm going to get a better 6-card hand, just because this deck doesn't mulligan super well with its relatively low land count. And I do have the 2, a mountain and a swamp, to go ahead and play the Scholar, which will keep things back. I can also draw some cards. So I'll go ahead and keep this. And my opponent leads with a Scryland. Luckily, the top card of my deck was a green source, one of the fast lands. Again, since they're tapped out, I want to get the Scholar down when I can get through things. However, this opponent does present much more interesting choices as far as what to take. The important thing to note right now is they have a Temple of Silence, and then the Choked Estuary, which means they have no green source. So while I might normally consider taking the Jorega Tree Speaker, in this situation it's not that threatening. Similar with Spring to Mind, I don't think I would take the card to begin with, but I definitely don't have to worry about it when they don't have a green source. Of the cards they have, Trinket Mage couldn't enable a lot of shenanigans, but I'm not concerned about it at this point, as they're still a little bit away from casting it, and then they would have to play the artifact as well. Similar with Dig Through Time, while an extremely powerful card, and something I wouldn't take if it was later in the game, they have 0 cards in their graveyard, and they're not likely to have enough cards in their graveyard to activate anytime soon. So that leaves Cyclonic Rift, which is a card that can be quite troublesome for an aggro deck, and lets him rebuy any of these cards if he decides he urgently wants them. So at that point, the choice is, of course, Cyclonic Rift. And then I found out something interesting about Magic Online. It says 8 cards are revealed, so my opponent only has 6 cards in their hands, and that's because they've taken Spring to Mind and changed it into 2 cards that have been revealed now. So that 1 card is now counted as 3 cards revealed. And then I go ahead and pass back to my turn, or to my opponent, who just plays the land that we knew they had. They didn't draw anything to reveal, and so nothing goes on. I draw another land, and luckily I get to play down my commander at this point and get Doran going. So my opponent then plays the plains that they had, and they play their commander. So at this point, I just drew Elsbeth, and essentially the question I have to ask myself is what's the most efficient play here, and what's the better play? If I play the Silver Blade and attach it to Doran, they could just block and take no damage. And I have a lingering mana that's not available that I have no use for. So in that case, it makes more sense to play Elsbeth because I use my mana better, and then also I can guarantee a hit because I can give it flying. I can leave back the Scholar if I decide I wanted to block for some reason. And so I get to go ahead and play Elsbeth and Mighty Leap the Doran to get some damage in. That also presents the situation where, depending on how my opponent plays, the Silverblade Paladin will present lethal the next turn because I will be able to launch Doran in the air again and then give Doran double strike. So I go ahead and play Elsbeth and then make Doran a 3/8 flyer. It's in for 8. So my opponent does draw a green source here, and they go ahead and attack. Since I am wanting to use Elsbeth on Doran and possibly Silverblade Paladin, I can't trade here because that would give them back Cyclonic Rift, and that gives them an out to that. So even though I'd rather them not draw a card, I decided it's better for them to draw a card and they have a much higher chance of being able to win the next turn. And so my opponent plays Harrow, which is the full art Texas version. Harrow is 3 mana, sacrifice a land as an additional cost, and then it is search your library for up to 2 lands and put them onto the battlefield. They do not come into play tapped, so it can be used as mana acceleration in the right situation. And here my opponent gets an island and a forest. And then they go ahead and play the spring half of Spring to Mind. However, that doesn't mean they're tapped out, so I get this next turn, just get to slam down the Silver Blade and fling Doran with Elsbeth to make a 3/8 double strike. And at that point, my opponent said GG, and they go ahead and scoop it up as the game's over. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and good luck in your Commander leagues.